Trying to riff on old fairy tale tropes and stories has been done so many times it's become a series of tropes itself. Ones that are very, very tired and just not entertaining anymore. If well done, it can still be good for a few laughs here and there, but unfortunately, today's movie isn't an example of it done well at all. The effort was there, but it clearly relied way too much on ripping off Disney and Shrek. The characters were stale and not very likable, with holes in the plot you could launch a cruise liner through. We are introduced to Prince Philippe Charming, who is not genuinely charming at all. His design isn't awful, and I do have an appreciation for characters that look more like someone you could actually meet on the street in an everyday situation than ones who are clearly designed to be as pretty as possible, but I still feel like they could have done a lot better with him. His problem is that when his father was young, he went through a series of challenges called the Gauntlet to try and find his one true love. He was successful and married Philippe's mother, the late queen, without realizing that the woman who had acted as his guide and protector throughout the gauntlet had fallen in love with him. His former guide, Nemone Neverwish, turns out to be a witch, somehow, even though she apparently was working as a guide or something before, and when Philippe is born, she curses him to be too charming, to the point that every woman he meets will instantly fall in love with him as soon as they look into his eyes or see his smile. That would make it impossible for him to find his one true love, and upon his 21st birthday, if he hadn't figured out a way to find his true love, all love in the world would die. Points for creativity, turning what's usually a positive trait into a negative one, but I can still see several loopholes that, if they'd bothered to think about it for 5 minutes, they could have used to get around it. For one, if it requires looking into his eyes or seeing his smile, which definitely seems to be the trigger going by what we see in various scenes, masks exist. He could go straight up Phantom of the Opera or Man in the Iron Mask and prevent the curse from forcing everyone around him to fall for him. Secondly, while Philippe talks like the curse is just so terrible and awful, he certainly doesn't act that way. He makes no effort whatsoever to stop himself from exposing his magic mojo to every woman in the kingdom and basks in their attentions. This isn't a guy who is suffering the consequences of a curse and desperately trying to find a way to break it. This is a guy who is enjoying the heck out of it and taking full advantage of basically being a walking roofie. In frustration with his behavior, especially the fact that Philippe is proposing to every princess he meets, which is just begging for several wars, his father tells him to go run the gauntlet himself to find his true love. Hey, King, you had nearly 21 years to do something about this. Why didn't you send him on the gauntlet, which seems to be a guaranteed way to find one's true love, a few years ago, or, any time before, just 3 days before the deadline? Just a thought. So it turns out that the princes who have been saving the princesses throughout all the major well-known fairy tales, Cinderella, Snow White, and Sleeping Beauty in particular, are all the same prince, this smarmy idiot, who has arranged to marry all 3. Now, I don't know what the rules on polygamy are in fairy tale kingdoms, but going by the way the princesses react when they find out, I don't think it's really encouraged. The princesses are all parodies of the Disney version and are given reasons that supposedly make them unsuitable for marriage, some of which anyone who has seen any parody or even knows what parody is could see coming from a mile away. Cinderella is bossy and demanding. Sleeping Beauty is narcoleptic, very original. And Snow White is suffering from extreme PTSD? Okay, that's kind of not funny. She had someone try to murder her several times and is now anxious and has trauma related to poison and apples, and that's supposed to be a big joke and make her look like someone who is clearly unfit for marriage? This movie gets really mean-spirited. I mean, I know parody and satire often go into mean-spirited tones, but this one crosses the line a bit from humor into being kinda messed up a few times. They're all oblivious that they're betrothed to the same guy until they run into our other main character, Lenore, a thief who tries to steal all their jewelry and keeps asking about their loves to distract them. When they all show her pictures of their prince, she realizes they're all talking about the same guy and points it out, leading to the princesses having a meltdown. Lenore is your typical, not like other girls character, a subversion that's been done so many times it's not even really a subversion anymore. She gets caught while trying to escape after robbing the princesses, and makes a deal with... Is this King the dad to all three princesses? The way he talks to them, it seems like he is, or like he's some kind of guardian or something of them. Huh. They make a deal that in exchange for her freedom and a nice payout, Lenore will take Philippe through the gauntlet and make sure he doesn't get killed or distracted by something shiny. Lenore actually met Philippe earlier, and she proved to be immune to his curse, the only woman he's ever met that his powers didn't work on. Wearing a truly terrible disguise that basically just consists of a stick-on mustache and shortening her name to Lenny, the two of them head out to Fire Mountain to get Philippe through the gauntlet. She quickly finds out how truly obnoxious he is. Anyone not affected by his curse would probably be sick of him within seconds, and if he did marry one of the princesses, I could see them wanting a divorce the moment the magic wore off. I bet he's the kind of guy who leaves wet towels on the bathroom floor till they develop their own ecosystem. They do get to talking about their pasts, however, and we find out that Lenore was raised by pirates at sea, and was cursed by Nemone to never be able to love. Which doesn't make a lot of sense. If Nemone sees love as a bad thing, wouldn't she feel that someone being unable to experience love was a good thing? Besides, it doesn't seem like Lenore was actually suffering much from the curse. She still has her friends, a bird that she can somehow understand, and her horse named Charlie. Heh, Charlie horse, we get it. This movie is just trying so hard and failing on every front. Furthermore, this makes it seem like Lenore not being the type who is inclined to swoon at any man who gives her a toothy grin is a bad thing, like it's unnatural. Being someone who is ace arrow myself, I object to that. Romantic love is great and all, but it's not the one and only thing that makes life worth living. I still have friends, I still interact with people all the time and get all the fulfillment I need out of platonic relationships. I enjoy writing and reading about romance, sure, but it's not something I feel like I have to wrap my life around, and I like being able to come home and know that the ice cream or whatever I have in my freezer that I've been looking forward to will still be there when I get home because I don't have to share my space with anyone else. I don't have to worry about if someone else thinks the big ceramic frog on my shelf is tacky. I rescued Sir Ribbington from the thrift store and he now guards my home, and if anybody has a problem with that, they can stuff it. Besides all that, there's the fact that they could have closed a giant gaping plot hole right here so easily, and yet didn't. We never find out why Nemone cursed Lenore to begin with. We know why she cursed Philippe because his father broke her heart. That makes sense. But why Lenore? What did Lenore or Lenore's parents do that made Nemone target her? Apparently she's just a nobody thief who grew up with pirates, nothing that would have really gotten Nemone's attention. What they could have easily done here was to change the wording of the curse just a little, that Philippe's powers would affect all the women of the land, and make them fall for his charms so he couldn't find his true love. That would make Lenore immune because she's not of the land. She grew up at sea and for all we know was born on a ship. She doesn't belong to the land, she belongs to the sea. So that'd mean the curse wouldn't affect her. 2 big gaping plot holes plugged, right there, with nothing more than adding a couple of words to the curse. And yet, no one could think of that simple workaround? Along their journey, they're attacked by a tribe of cannibal giants called the Matilija, who consist entirely of women. This is basically the only time Philippe is actually somewhat useful, as he's able to instantly charm them. Instead of being eaten, he winds up being intended to marry the leader of the cannibals, while Lenore gets tossed into a pot overseen by the tribe's oracle, played by Sia, who gets a trippy song sequence. Now, I have mixed feelings about Sia's music. I definitely don't like her as a person, and I'm disgusted by how she treats people who work for or around her, especially her abuse and exploitation of younger women and girls. She does have a somewhat unique voice, and the tune of the songs can be decent, but the lyrics are just fake deep word salad. They sound like they're saying something deep and profound, but they're really not. If they're saying anything coherent at all, it's very surface level, and the rest of the time it's just tacking a bunch of words together to fill out however many syllables the segment requires. I'm just not impressed by her. Philippe and Lenore manage to sneak away, but their escape is quickly discovered with the tribe chasing after them. They fall into a crevasse with the giant stomping above to try and cave in the ground around them, just barely managing to find a passageway before they're buried alive. They find themselves in a series of caves, where Nemone lays a trap to exploit Lenore's greed, a trail of jewels leading to one large one embedded in a stone wall. Lenore pries it free, only for the stone to come to life as a massive monster, which they recognize as one of the trials. They try to fight it. Well, mostly Philippe just gets beat up by it while Lenore debates herself over whether or not love is possible for her, until Philippe manages to figure out the problem and put the gem back, which ends the fight. Afterwards, they find a small village, which is really strange. I thought the only way to reach this mountain was through the trials, and it seems like a really weird place to set up the homestead, surrounded by monsters, cannibal giants, and actively vicious landscapes, but I grew up in Texas, so I guess I really can't judge. Lenore decides that she wants to give love a try, and she has started developing feelings for Philippe, which kind of goes against the curse that was put on her. Isn't she supposed to be unable to feel love? She seems to be able to feel it just fine. She sends an invitation for a date to Philippe, who at first at least attempts to not catch the attention of all the other women around, but very quickly goes back to being his usual self, basking in the attention that's given to him by all the women and enjoying being fawned over. Lenore sees this after getting herself all dolled up and is heartbroken, deciding to just get him through the rest of the gauntlet so she can get her money and leave. They make it to Fire Mountain, where they meet up with everybody else. Philippe at first doesn't understand when Lenore takes the gold or by how coldly she acts towards him, having never realized that she saw him with all the other women in the tavern, or even having realized that Lenny was a woman the whole time, despite a very pathetic attempt at a disguise that didn't even include trying to flatten her chest. He's shocked when she reveals the truth to him and realizes that she must be his true love. He tries to convince her that he's not really the way she saw him in the tavern and that he loves her, but she doesn't believe him, with good reason, and leaves. Philippe realizes that marrying any of the princesses won't do any good, as none of them are his true love, and instead decides that the only way to stop all love in the world from being destroyed is for him to die before the spell is complete. To that end, he writes a bunch of letters to all the women whose hearts he's broken, explaining the curse and why he has to die. Lenore's bird brings her one of the letters, leading to Lenore realizing that Charming was genuine and actually does love her. She interrupts the execution, with Nemone showing up to stop them from kissing and trying to kill Lenore so the curse will be complete. Philippe jumps in to protect Lenore, taking the hit and dying, which, as it turns out, was the final step of the gauntlet, the blind leap of faith. Lenore's kiss, true love's kiss, brings Charming back to life, with Nemone vanishing forever, her curses disappearing with her. Lenore gives up the riches she was rewarded with, not that it actually matters or anything with her marrying into royalty. She and Philippe get married and end the movie with a bun in the oven and a generic pop song. This movie had potential, but it was really wasted in ways that are downright confusing. It seems like most of the budget went to the voice cast, with the likes of Demi Lovato, Avril Lavigne, Jim Cummings, Tara Strong, and the aforementioned Sia being on board, among others. The animation wasn't terrible, but it was definitely not anything particularly memorable either, and a lot of the time it seems like the mouths just don't match up with their words. I thought at first that maybe it was originally done in a different language and was dubbed into English later, but apparently was only released in the USA and Canada, and English was the language it was originally produced in, so why the mouth movements are so off-kilter is really weird. The problem with parodies is that with so many already being out there, if you want to be satirical or a parody, you really have to bring something new and unique to the table, and they just didn't. It was pretty much all the same jokes and tropes you've seen a million times, and the few times they did something a little bit different, like Snow White's PTSD, it just wasn't funny or enjoyable. It just seemed unnecessarily cruel for no reason. There were a lot of plot holes that could have been easily fixed, like the aforementioned rewording of the curse to explain why Lenore wasn't affected, but they just kind of didn't bother to think about it. I'm guessing they figured the audience wasn't going to think about it, and this is less a movie to tell a story than it is something to pop on and keep the kids quiet for an hour or so you can work without them bothering you. The characters aren't particularly enjoyable or memorable and don't have unique designs. Lenore looks like the default girl design you get in any games before you start playing with sliders to customize them. And Charming, well, he's not awful, and I do appreciate that he's not the default pretty boy design, but he just looks so smarmy and honestly more like a villain sidekick than a hero. And the rest of the characters are just diet versions of their Disney counterparts. Overall, not the worst thing I've seen, but definitely not something I'd bother watching again. It just had nothing to pull you back in. The music wasn't awful, but it's certainly not something I'd catch myself humming like any of the music from Disney's golden age. It was mostly just forgettable generic pop. The animation looks like what I see in a bunch of those AI-generated phone game ads with the king who is always getting boiled in lava or whatever, and the mouths often don't match up to the words. There's just nothing special or memorable about it, and not even really any particular message beyond love is good. If you want to watch it just to see what it's about, I don't see any harm, but there's definitely plenty of better things out there to see. Thank you all for joining me. We've made it through one very chaotic month. Hopefully the rest of the year will start chilling out and things will get a little less, well, everything. Remember to take some time to just chill out and try to relax, try to slow down a little, stop doom scrolling, and give your brain a little bit of breathing room. Be safe, stay warm, and I'll see you in the next one.